So now we will talk about user contributions to online dictionaries. And the World Wide Web allows for various possibilities for users to contribute to dictionaries. And these range from giving feedback or correcting errors to creating new dictionary entries and discussing language-related issues. And the discussion on user contributions in lexicography is mainly linked to online dictionaries, but it is anything but new, as even print dictionaries may be strongly based on collaboration with the public. So, for instance, the Oxford English Dictionary conducted reading programs from its beginning in the 19th century and to collect quotations illustrating the use or how words are actually used. But of course, the dynamics outside the paper are obviously different, as they facilitate a greater variety of user contributions. So the earliest descriptions of user contributions to electronic dictionaries date back to the mid-1990s. And in his well-known article, Carr introduces the terms bottom-up lexicography and collaborative lexicography without further differentiating between these terms. Both expressions nowadays are used as a kind of umbrella terms for different types of user contributions. And this also applies for other expressions that are more or less used synonymously to describe any type or other types of user contributions, including, for instance, user involvement and contributions based on user-generated content. Furthermore, there are many other terms that are used in this context, as you can see on this slide, that are partly overlapping. Analyzing previous work done in this context, one can notice that different studies usually focus on one specific type or one specific dimension of user contribution. So Carr, for instance, predominantly addresses the submission of dictionary articles and additions by email. And however, Angelika Storrer focuses on the distinction between dictionaries including editorial control or not. Köhler-Simonsen describes user contributions with regard to different phases of the lexicographic process. And Fertes Oliveira distinguishes between collective free internet works, such as Wikipedia or Wiktionary, and institutional internet reference works that are offered by publishers, professional publishers. Melchior introduced the term semi-collaborative for his analysis for the Leo dictionaries, for this portal of dictionaries, and he defines a semi-collaborative dictionary as being supported by users rather than generated by users. And Lev discusses multiple dictionary projects along the dimension of their degree of user-generated content. Now, recent studies of user contributions have become increasingly detailed, but a comprehensive and systematic classification is still missing. Now, in his analysis of 88 online dictionaries, Mann lists 3 possible types of user contributions, and these types are direct contributions, indirect contributions, and exchange with other dictionary users. Now, however, Mann provides little detail of the individual types of user contributions and omits, for example, the forms of discourse between the dictionary makers and the dictionary users. Thus, we propose a novel classification of different types of user contributions based on the analysis of many practical examples. Now, On this slide, you can see an overview of our proposed classifications, and here we use the terms direct and indirect user contributions from MAN and added what we call accessory user contributions. So direct user contributions obviously directly affect dictionary content and through, for instance, adding new articles. Whereas indirect user contributions mean that you can give feedback that potentially yields a change of the dictionaries, for instance, by correcting errors or something like this. Accessory user contributions go beyond the dictionary content itself, for instance, through forums or blogs and so on. So we have to note that single dictionary may utilize different types of user contributions at the same time. And furthermore, there is sometimes a very smooth transition between the different types of user contributions. But now we will present the different types of user contributions in more detail. So the first type is direct user contributions, and by this we refer to additions, modifications, and deletions of dictionary articles or parts of them performed by dictionary users. And in open collaborative dictionaries, the descriptions are completely built by the users themselves without any editorial control. And this approach has become particularly popular with the rise of the free online encyclopedia, Wikipedia. And it is very popular for multilingual dictionaries or dictionaries that focus on translations, for example, Babblar or Glossby. And most open collaborative dictionaries are based on fixed lexicographic instructions or a predefined article microstructure. And this means that the scope or the microstructure, etc., are predefined. So it is, as it is the case with the Omega Wiki or the Urban Dictionary, for example. Other dictionaries of this type show a structural openness. This means that the microstructure can be changed. That might yield inconsistencies. And so this is the case, for instance, for the Wiktionary project. Another type of collaborative dictionaries are provided by publishers. So, for instance, the Merriam-Webster Open Dictionaries is one of these, belongs to this type. Unlike contributions to open collaborative dictionaries, the users cannot directly modify or delete other users' contributions, but are limited to submitting new articles. And they are used for getting feedback in order to improve the dictionary or keeping users interested. And so these types are also closely linked to the other types of user contributions we are going to present in a moment. And typically the contributions are in the form of full dictionary articles, which are checked for spam or for personal offense or defamation before being published. They are, however, not edited on a large scale. And the contributions may have a fixed scope. So, for instance, the Duden Szene-Sprachen-Wiki that focuses on neologisms and slang. And others are unrestricted, so for instance, the Macmillan Open Dictionary. Editors of semi-collaborative dictionaries build their dictionary to a large extent based on user contributions. And what we define as contributions to semi-collaborative dictionaries are the submissions of new entries, as well as the donations of entire word lists or glossaries, as it is the case for the Leo dictionaries, for instance. And the contributions are carefully examined by professional editors before they are incorporated into the dictionary. And one example for this is the Tech Dictionary, which asks people for submissions of technology or computer-related dictionary articles. And the difference to feedback, which is the next type we discuss, is often very shallow. All user contributions that can directly affect the dictionary article or that are directly published as part of the dictionaries are, following our classification, direct user contributions. Whereas, for instance, the citations sent to the Oxford English Dictionary represent only supplementary materials that requires critical verification and selection.
So by direct user contributions, the users cannot modify the dictionary articles and the dictionary as a whole directly, but they can provide various kinds of feedback to the dictionary, such as suggestions, corrections that are integrated by the dictionary makers into the dictionary. So we distinguish between two types of feedback. So one is explicit feedback and the other is implicit feedback. And by explicit feedback, we refer and we kind of encompass suggestions and wishes uttered by the users, error corrections submitted to the dictionary makers on existing content that is already there. And as Andrea already mentioned, this is there is a very fuzzy boundary to the semi-collaborative dictionaries. But as you can imagine, if you submit a quotation, for example, as we heard yesterday for the OED, this needs to be verified by the dictionary makers, and it needs to be decided on the extent of context to integrate into the dictionary, and, well, if it's integrated at all. So one way of providing feedback is in a free form, so you can utter feedback just by phone or letters or emails in any form that users like. Or a popular way of doing that is using online forums. And I have some examples here on the slide. So these forums can range from very simple forms, providing only 2 or 3 fields that you can fill in, like shown on the right, or a very complicated form with several types of fields where you can select different types of information, such as for the OED submission form that I have on the left. Beyond the actual dictionary content where you can provide feedback on, users can also provide feedback on the quality of articles. So I have one example here from dic.cc, where a user is asked if the shown translation is correct and useful, and there are different options that the user can take. So one is yes, and I'm 100% sure that this is correct. The other is no, maybe. And user can also skip, which means, well, there is no way of judging for this user. There is also implicit feedback, which is, well, feedback that has no explicit action by the user. Many users are not even aware that they're giving this kind of feedback. It's created just by using the dictionary. So I think the most common and well-known way of giving implicit feedback is by log files. So we heard about that quite a lot during the sessions. Log files are just created when users use the dictionary, open and access different articles. But also, if users mark favorite articles or collect their own word lists and organize them, this is one kind of implicit feedback that I can use as a dictionary publisher to see, well, which articles are frequently used and which articles belong to the same group. They are kind of managed and organized together by the users. One example that I have for Wordnik is that they use photo streams from Flickr and quotations from Twitter. So these are kind of external user-generated content platforms that are pulled into the dictionary. So this is one way of implicit feedback that comes from outside of the dictionary. And, well, people submitting a photo to Flickr, they're not aware that this might be used at WordNik. So the third type of user contributions that we have in our classification are accessory user contributions that go beyond the dictionary content and initiate an exchange between the dictionary makers and their users. So in this field of user contributions, we classify blogs, newsletters, and any actions that are taken in social media. So I have two particular examples of this type of initiating such an exchange between the dictionary makers and the users, which are language games and professional language services. So language games is kind of a new field to kind of promote the dictionary and to keep the users in using the dictionary, but also trying to educate them how to use the dictionary correctly. So one example for that is from the Dutch dictionary ANW. They recently launched a language game called The Lost Word, where users received cryptic descriptions of a word, and they had to come up with the dictionary article. So they had to use the dictionary to solve this kind of puzzle. And for professional language services, we heard that this morning by Annette's keynote. There's a service from the German-Swiss manufacturer CanoeNet, which provide a service called Ask Dr. Bob, and users can submit any questions on the German language, such as on the correct inflection, stuff like that, and they receive a detailed answer on this question with several links to the dictionary, so they get back to the dictionary then. But we're not limited to have an exchange between the dictionary makers and the dictionary users, but one type of user contribution can also be to initiate an exchange between the users themselves. So this could be done by means of forums or discussion pages or user comments. Some examples for that are the Leo online dictionary, which have huge translation forums where their users exchange each other with different translation proposals, and also you can have some consultation. So if this is a good translation in this context, so there are some native speakers from both languages of the bilingual dictionary that come together in the forum and discuss also things that are not explicitly mentioned in a dictionary. Wiktionary has separate discussion pages for each article, which can be used to engage in an exchange between the users. And WordNik has, for example, on each page, different user comments that can be added to just comment the dictionary article. So to conclude the talk, we had this classification of the three different types of user contributions. So in the beginning, the direct user contributions that are used to add new contents to the dictionary, to modify what is already existing in the dictionary, also deletions of contents to the dictionary, especially when it comes to the open collaborative dictionaries, such as Wiktionary. Then we had the indirect user contributions, so providing feedback, not altering the dictionary directly, but providing suggestions, wishes, or submitting error corrections to the dictionary makers. And the implicit feedback, which is done implicitly without awareness of the users, very often at least, so log file analysis, and this externally generated content that is pulled into the dictionary. And last but not least, the accessory user contributions, like blogs, newsletters, to kind of initiate this exchange between dictionary makers and the users, and between the users themselves. So thank you for your attention, and we're looking forward to our discussion on this topic. So, maybe I can mention that because we have another second. So what we are thinking about for the future is that we want to use this classification to initiate research in this direction of user contributions. And we're very welcome your comments on, well, how to drive this field further, for example, to initiate a discussion on quality of user contributions, so have the different types of user contributions and evaluating their quality. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions?
So by way of a suggestion, I think that one of the things that needs to be on the radar when you're discussing user-generated contributions is the question of copyright and licensing. So what you often see in these sort of institutional open dictionaries like the Macmillan Open Dictionary is that if you contribute an embryonic entry, it ends up being edited by the editors and then it ends up being copyrighted by the dictionary publisher, whereas if you contribute to a genuinely open dictionary like Wiktionary or Omega Wiki, then the user's contributions become available to the world under a very permissive license which allows reuse by anybody and anywhere for whatever purpose. So the point is that users might be more easily persuaded to contribute to a dictionary if the license is very open, so that they know that they're not effectively working for somebody for free. So I think that the question of licensing sort of should be somewhere in the classification.
Yeah, thank you for this comment. So this is exactly one of the reasons why we need to divide between contributions to open collaborative dictionaries and to contributions to collaborative institutional dictionaries. And this has been very shallow in previous works, so there has been a lot of publications on collaborative dictionaries and, well, kind of user contributions to collaborative dictionaries. There are kind of they go into this direction, but we need to distinguish really between those different types. So, and copyright is really one issue there.
Any more questions?
Hi. I would like to ask you about about language games. What is the most outstanding example using language games in dictionaries, online dictionaries? Could you give one?
So I don't really have a survey on language games, but this one example that I mentioned, so at the Dutch dictionary A&W's, they had this language game, and in parallel they did log file analysis, and they recognized really a huge leap in the number of users that came and used the dictionary. So according to their work, this was a huge success to offer this language game. But, well, obviously, this is a lot of work to develop such a language game and to maintain it, to have a very appealing offer there. So it needs to be carefully evaluated. But it's definitely one way of initiating such an exchange between the dictionary makers and the dictionary users, and to kind of keep them together.
Yeah, exactly. If we speak about the user involvement and motivation, I think that this point game is very useful and promising, and not only extrinsic like sticks and carrots, but also intrinsic when I like doing this, since we all are defending a child inside of us, and I'm sure that even adults are enjoying and find games within their professional environment exciting. Yeah, it would be very interesting to know more about it. Thank you.
For instance, you have. Then you have other types of these kind of user contributions. For instance, the OED collaborates also, for instance, with BBC, and so they are able to launch big initiatives that have together with this media. So this is another kind to keep users interested in dictionary issues and so on. So they had kind of games like, such as the word hunt or something like this.
Yeah, these could make routine operations exciting. And one of the examples from the other area is OCR. And this is extremely boring, you know, to correct this OCR mistakes. And they are inventing flash games, how to, like childish interface, but it's very, really, it helps to, you don't even notice how time runs, and you are doing a lot like this. Thank you.
Any more? Jens?
Yeah, I think there is one more aspect to user contribution, which I don't know really how to put into your scheme, which is that in some dictionaries you have everybody editing the same entry. In other dictionaries you have several entries competing against each other of the same head word. And in a semi-collaborative dictionary between the publisher and its users, you could even have a competition going on between the user entry versions and the publishing house version or the institution versions. Any comments on that?
So that's definitely an interesting point. For the semi-collaborative dictionaries, there has been previously uttered that there are quite some conflicts between the different wishes submitted by the users and the different content that is given by the users. And also the extent of the dictionary. So some users, they want very simple information, so not as much on each page, and others, they want very detailed, quite a lot of information on each page. So there is definitely a conflict then that needs to be resolved, which is in semi-collaborative dictionaries kind of the job of the dictionary publishers. So in open collaborative dictionaries, there is no such thing like an editor that can do a final decision. So there must be a huge discussion then, which is kind of the case in Wiktionary for some aspects, that there is a discussion of which way to proceed. And there could also be frustration. So there are some people that left the Wiktionary project because, well, they didn't get through with their opinion. And, well, then the project moves in one direction. For collaborative institutional dictionaries, so the ones that are offered by publishers, that's not too much of a question, because usually the user contributions, they stay as they are submitted and they're just collected. And the publisher can decide which ones to use, and usually they integrate the interesting stuff into their own editorial dictionary.
Okay. Well, we'll have to stop here, because people have to go to other rooms. Thank you again.